The fog-shrouded lake whispered of murder, a young heiress vanishing beneath its glassy surface, her screams silenced forever, or so it seemed. Welcome to The Drowned Heiress, Secrets Beneath Still Waters, a Hercule Poirot mystery that will twist your thoughts like the currents below. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and let the suspense pull you in. If you're enjoying the story, hit that subscribe button. Your support means a lot to us. Chapter 1. The arrival at Willowbrook Manor in the misty autumn of 1928. The English countryside held its breath as Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed moustache and piercing grey eyes, stepped off the train at the quaint station of Eldridge Hollow. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves, a fitting prelude to the enigma that awaited him. Poirot adjusted his pristine overcoat, his little grey cells already humming with anticipation. He had received an urgent telegram from Lady Evelyn Hargrove, the matriarch of the Hargrove family, imploring him to investigate a matter of grave importance at Willowbrook Manor. "Death lurks in the shadows," the message read, "and only you can unveil the truth, Poirot." Ever the connoisseur of human folly and intrigue could not resist such a summons. As his chauffeur-driven car wound through the winding lanes lined with ancient oaks, he pondered the details he knew so far. The Hargroves were an old, aristocratic family, their fortune built on colonial tea plantations, but whispers of scandal had eroded their once sterling reputation. The manor itself loomed ahead like a brooding sentinel, its ivy-clad stone walls reflecting in the still waters of the adjacent lake, a lake that, unbeknownst to Poirot at that moment, held secrets as deep as its abyss. Upon arrival, Poirot was greeted at the grand oak doors by the butler, Mr. Jenkins, a stooped figure with a face etched by years of discreet service. "Monsieur Poirot, we are most grateful for your haste," Jenkins murmured, his voice a low rumble that echoed through the cavernous entrance hall. The interior was a testament to faded opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung like forgotten stars. Persian rugs muffled footsteps, and portraits of stern ancestors glared down from gilded frames. Lady Evelyn awaited in the drawing room, a regal woman in her late 50s, her silver hair pinned in an elegant chignon, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of desperation beneath her composed facade. "Thank you for coming, Monsieur Poirot," she said, extending a gloved hand. "Our family is in turmoil. My niece, Amelia Hargrove, the heiress to our estate, has drowned in the lake just 2 nights ago. The police deem it a tragic accident, but I fear foul play. Amelia was to inherit everything upon my passing, and there are those who would benefit from her absence." Poirot settled into a velvet armchair, his keen gaze sweeping the room as Lady Evelyn poured tea from a silver service. He noted the subtle tremors in her hands, signs of concealed anxiety. "Tell me, madame, the circumstances of this so-called accident," he prompted gently, his accent adding a layer of exotic intrigue to his words. Lady Evelyn recounted the events with measured precision. Amelia, a vibrant 25-year-old with a passion for literature and horseback riding, had taken a solitary rowboat onto the lake after dinner. She was an excellent swimmer, raised on these very waters, yet her body was found the next morning, entangled in weeds near the shore, with no signs of struggle. The coroner's preliminary report suggested she had struck her head on the boat's edge during a sudden squall, leading to unconsciousness and drowning. But Lady Evelyn was unconvinced. "Amelia confided in me days before," she whispered. "She spoke of threats, anonymous letters warning her to relinquish her claim to the inheritance. And then there's the matter of her fiancé, Reginald Thorpe, a charming but penniless artist who stands to gain nothing now that she's gone." As Poirot sipped his tea, savouring its Earl Grey notes, he probed further. "Who else resides at Willowbrook, madame? I must understand the cast of characters in this drama." Lady Evelyn listed them with a sigh. Her brother-in-law, Sir Reginald Hargrove, a retired colonel with a gambling habit that had drained family coffers. His wife, Aunt Beatrice, a sharp-tongued socialite obsessed with maintaining appearances. Their son, Cousin Victor, a brooding inventor tinkering in the manor's attic with mechanical contraptions, and Amelia's younger sister, Clara, a timid 20-year-old, overshadowed by her siblings' radiance but harboring quiet ambitions of her own. Additionally, there was Dr. Elias Hawthorne, the family physician who had pronounced Amelia dead, and Miss Lydia Finch, the governess-turned-companion who oversaw the household's daily affairs with an iron fist disguised as efficiency. Poirot's mind catalogued each name, envisioning them as pieces on a chessboard, each with potential motives lurking in the shadows. Venturing outside, Poirot insisted on inspecting the lake immediately, despite the gathering dusk. The water lay mirror-still, reflecting the manor's silhouette like a dark omen. Accompanied by Jenkins, who carried a lantern, Poirot examined the boathouse, a weathered structure smelling of mildew and varnish. The rowboat in question bobbed gently, its oars neatly stowed, but Poirot's sharp eyes spotted anomalies. A faint scratch along the gunwale, as if from a forceful impact, and a torn fragment of lace caught in the seat's splintered wood. "Interesting," he murmured, pocketing the lace with a gloved hand. "This suggests not an accident, but perhaps a struggle or a staging." Jenkins shifted uncomfortably, his loyalty to the family evident, yet Poirot detected a hint of withheld knowledge in the butler's averted gaze. Pressing gently, Poirot learned that Jenkins had overheard a heated argument between Amelia and Victor the evening before her death. Something about hidden patents and stolen ideas. Victor's inventions, it seemed, relied on funding from the estate, funding that Amelia had threatened to withhold. Returning indoors, Poirot requested interviews with the family, beginning with Clara, Amelia's sister. She was found in the library, a cozy room lined with leather-bound tomes and flickering candlelight. Clara, with her wide doe eyes and trembling voice, clutched a handkerchief as she spoke. "Amelia was everything I wasn't. Bold, beautiful, beloved," she admitted softly. "But she loved me dearly. We shared secrets by the lake as children. The night she died, I saw her rowing out alone, but I thought I heard voices echoing across the water. Arguing, perhaps." Poirot leaned forward, his moustache twitching. "Voices, mademoiselle? Could you identify them?" Clara shook her head, tears welling. "No, it was too faint." But Amelia had been acting strangely, poring over old family documents in the attic. She mentioned discovering something about our grandfather's will. A codicil that could change everything. The conversation was interrupted by Sir Reginald's booming entrance, his military bearing masking a reddened nose from too much port. "What's all this prying, eh? The girl's death was a bloody accident. End of story," he blustered, but Poirot noted the sweat beading on his brow despite the cool room. Dismissing him politely, Poirot turned his attention to the anonymous letters Lady Evelyn had mentioned. She produced them from a locked drawer. 3 envelopes, postmarked from nearby villages, their contents scrawled in disguised handwriting. "Leave the inheritance or face the depths," one read. Poirot examined them under a magnifying glass, detecting a faint scent of lavender, the same perfume worn by Aunt Beatrice, as he had noticed earlier. "Ah, the little details. They betray the grand deceptions," he thought. As the evening deepened, Poirot dined with the family in the opulent dining hall, where silver candelabras cast dancing shadows on the walls. The meal was tense, roast pheasant served with forced pleasantries, interrupted by Victor's abrupt excuses to retreat to his attic workshop. Poirot observed the dynamics. The way Reginald avoided eye contact with his wife, Beatrice's sly glances toward Dr. Hawthorne, and Lydia Finch's vigilant oversight of every servant's move. After dinner, Poirot retired to his guest room, a lavish suite overlooking the lake, but sleep eluded him. Instead he paced, piecing together the puzzle. Amelia's drowning seemed too convenient, aligning with the family's financial strains, debts from Sir Reginald's wages, Victor's need for invention capital, and even Clara's subtle resentment. And what of Reginald Thorpe, the fiancé? He was absent, purportedly in London, but Poirot resolved to summon him. The chapter closes on a chilling note. As midnight struck, Poirot heard a soft splash from the lake below his window. Peering out, he saw a shadowy figure retreating into the mist-shrouded gardens. Was it a ghost of the past, or a harbinger of more danger? The secrets beneath the still waters were just beginning to surface, drawing Poirot deeper into the web of deceit at Willowbrook Manor. Chapter 2. Shadows on the Shore. The morning after Poirot's restless night, a heavy mist clung to Willowbrook Manor, shrouding the lake in an eerie veil. Hercule Poirot, ever meticulous, stood at the water's edge, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth. The splash he'd heard at midnight gnawed at his mind, a clue that refused to be dismissed. His grey cells buzzed as he surveyed the scene. The lake's surface was unbroken, but a faint trail of disturbed pebbles led from the boathouse to a copse of willows. Someone had been here, moving with purpose under cover of darkness. Poirot's investigation was now a race against time. Secrets were stirring, and he sensed the manor's inhabitants were guarding more than their grief. He resolved to probe deeper, starting with the elusive fiancé, Reginald Thorpe, who was due to arrive from London that afternoon. Back at the manor, Poirot requested a private meeting with Dr. Elias Hawthorne, the family physician whose calm demeanour at dinner had struck him as oddly detached. They met in the conservatory, a glass-walled haven filled with exotic ferns and the faint hum of bees. Dr. Hawthorne, a lean man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a clinical air, greeted Poirot with a polite nod. "Monsieur Poirot, I trust you're finding our little tragedy straightforward," he asked, his tone betraying a hint of condescension. Poirot smiled thinly, his eyes sharp. "On the contrary, doctor, nothing is straightforward when death is cloaked in such mystery. Tell me you examined the body. Were there marks, signs of anything unusual?" Hawthorne hesitated, adjusting his glasses. He described finding Amelia entangled in lake weeds, her face pale but unmarred save for a small bruise on her temple. "Consistent with striking the boat," he insisted. "No signs of violence beyond that. The squall that night was fierce. Boats can be treacherous." Poirot noted the doctor's steady hands, but caught a fleeting glance toward the manor, as if ensuring they were alone. "And you saw her that evening before she rode out?" Poirot pressed. Hawthorne confirmed he'd visited to check on Lady Evelyn's health, but claimed no interaction with Amelia. Yet Poirot's instincts whispered of a mission. Leaving the conservatory, Poirot sought out cousin Victor in his attic workshop, a cluttered labyrinth of gears, blueprints, and half-built contraptions. Victor, a wiry man in his 30s with ink-stained fingers and a perpetual scowl, was hunched over a mechanical device that whirred faintly. "Monsieur Victor," Poirot began, "I understand you and Amelia had a disagreement before her passing. Something about patents?" Victor's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. "Jenkins talks too much," he muttered. He admitted arguing with Amelia over funding for his inventions. A mechanical irrigation system he claimed would revolutionize the estate's farms. Amelia, as the future heiress, had questioned its viability, threatening to redirect funds to charity. "She didn't understand progress," Victor said bitterly, tossing a wrench onto his workbench. Poirot observed the cluttered attic, spotting a notebook with cryptic sketches and a locked trunk in the corner. When asked about the night of Amelia's death, Victor claimed he was here, working late, with no witnesses to confirm his alibi. His defensiveness was palpable, and Poirot marked him as a man with secrets worth uncovering. By midday, Reginald Thorpe arrived, his artist's smock replaced by a sombre suit that did little to mask his dishevelled charm. Poirot met him in the parlour, where Reginald's expressive hands fidgeted with a cigarette case. "I loved Amelia," he insisted, his voice cracking. "I was in London, meeting a gallery owner about my paintings. when I heard the news." He produced a train ticket stub as proof, but Poirot's keen eye noted its creased edge, as if handled repeatedly. Reginald admitted receiving one of the anonymous letters, warning him to stay away from Amelia or face consequences. "I thought it was jealousy. Her family never approved of me," he said, glancing toward the door where Aunt Beatrice lingered, her lavender perfume wafting faintly. Poirot asked about Amelia's recent behavior, and Reginald revealed she'd been preoccupied, mentioning a family secret she'd uncovered in old letters stored in the attic. "She wouldn't tell me more," he added, "but she was scared, Monsieur Poirot. I should have stayed with her." Intrigued by the attic's recurring significance, Poirot returned there alone, bypassing Victor's workshop to explore a dusty storage room. Amid cobwebbed crates, he found a box of yellowed documents, letters, ledgers, and a sealed envelope marked with the Hargrove crest. Inside was a codicil to the family will, dated decades earlier, suggesting an obscure cousin held a claim to part of the estate, potentially disrupting Amelia's inheritance. The paper was brittle, its ink faded, but its implications were explosive. Had Amelia found this, and had it cost her life? Poirot pocketed the document, his mind racing. The attic's narrow window overlooked the lake, and as he gazed out, he noticed a groundskeeper, Mr. Collins, raking leaves near the boathouse with unusual urgency. Poirot descended to confront him. Collins, a weathered man with a limp, was evasive when questioned about the night of Amelia's death. "I was in my cottage, sir," he said, avoiding Poirot's gaze. But when pressed, he admitted seeing a light flickering in the boathouse hours before Amelia's body was found, a detail he'd withheld from the police, fearing blame. "It wasn't my place to speak," he mumbled, his hands tightening on the rake. Poirot's suspicions deepened. A light in the boathouse suggested premeditation, not an accident. He thanked Collins and returned to the manor where lunch was served in strained silence. Clara, seated beside Poirot, whispered that she'd found one of Amelia's earrings, a pearl stud, near the boathouse steps the previous day, but hadn't told anyone, fearing it would implicate her sister in some scandal. Poirot requested to see it, and she promised to fetch it later. As afternoon faded, Poirot revisited the boathouse, this time with Clara, who handed him the earring wrapped in her handkerchief. The pearl gleamed, but its clasp was bent, as if torn off in haste. Examining the boathouse floor, Poirot found a faint scuff mark near the dock, suggesting a struggle or hurried movement. He questioned Clara about the voices she'd heard on the lake. "I couldn't make out words," she said, her voice trembling, but one sounded like a man's, low, angry. Poirot's mind catalogued this, cross-referencing it with Victor's temper and Reginald's absence. He also considered Dr. Hawthorne's cool detachment and Colin's nervous omission. Each clue was a thread in a tangled web, and Poirot knew he needed to unravel it before another tragedy struck. As dusk settled, Poirot stood by the lake, the mist curling around him like a shroud. A soft rustle in the nearby willows caught his ear, and he glimpsed a figure, too fleeting to identify, slipping into the shadows. The manor's secrets were growing restless, and Poirot sensed the killer was close, watching his every move. The trail of pebbles, the codicil, the earring, and the mysterious light were pieces of a puzzle that pointed to a truth hidden beneath the still waters. The next step would be to confront the family as a whole, to observe their reactions and uncover the lies beneath their polished exteriors. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. The air in Willowbrook Manor grew taut as Hercule Poirot prepared to confront the Hargrove family, his mind a whirl of clues. The codicil, the bent earring, the boathouse light, and the shadowy figure in the mist. The lake outside shimmered under a weak midday sun, its calm surface a stark contrast to the tension brewing within the manor's walls. Poirot requested a gathering in the grand dining hall. where the family's secrets could no longer hide behind polite smiles. His plan was simple, yet bold, to observe their reactions as he revealed select pieces of evidence, letting their own nerves betray the guilty. As the clock struck noon, the family assembled, their faces a gallery of unease, curiosity, and thinly veiled hostility. Poirot stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, his small stature commanding the room with quiet authority. Lady Evelyn sat rigidly, her hands folded tightly. Sir Reginald puffed on a cigar, his eyes darting to the windows. Aunt Beatrice adjusted her pearl brooch, her lavender scent cloying. Victor slouched, his fingers tapping an impatient rhythm. Clara clutched a book, her knuckles white. And Dr. Hawthorne stood near the door, his clinical gaze unreadable. Miss Lydia Finch hovered behind, her sharp eyes missing nothing, while Reginald Thorpe, the fiancé, lingered at the table's edge, his artist's hands restless. Poirot began with a measured tone, his Belgian accent lending gravitas. Mesdames et messieurs, the death of Mademoiselle Amelia was no accident. I have uncovered evidence that points to a deliberate act, and the truth lies among you. A murmur rippled through the room, but Poirot raised a hand to silence it. He produced the torn lace fragment from the boathouse, holding it aloft like a talisman. This was found in the rowboat, he said, watching their faces. Clara gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth, while Beatrice's eyes narrowed. It suggests a struggle, perhaps, or a presence in the boat with Amelia. He then revealed the bent pearl earring, placing it beside the lace. And this, found near the boathouse steps, belonged to the deceased. Its clasp is damaged, as if torn in haste. Does anyone recognize it? Clara nodded faintly, confirming it was Amelia's, but no one else spoke. Poirot noted Victor's clenched jaw and Reginald's sudden pallor. He chose not to mention the codicil yet, keeping that card close to his chest. Turning to the anonymous letters, Poirot laid out the 3 envelopes on the table, their scrawled threats stark against the cream paper. These warned Amelia to abandon her inheritance, he said. The scent of lavender clings to them. A curious detail, no? Beatrice stiffened, her hand brushing her perfume bottle instinctively. But she quickly recovered, scoffing. Many women wear lavender. Monsieur Poirot. Poirot smiled enigmatically, letting her words hang. He then addressed the boathouse light, mentioning Collins's testimony about the flicker seen hours before Amelia's body was found. Who was there, I wonder? He mused aloud. Sir Reginald coughed, muttering about poachers, but his voice lacked conviction. Dr. Hawthorne interjected smoothly. The groundskeeper is old, likely mistaken. The lake attracts odd lights at night, reflections, nothing more. Poirot's eyes lingered on the doctor, sensing a rehearsed deflection. To shake the room further, Poirot pivoted to Amelia's discovery in the attic. She uncovered documents, he said, suggesting a hidden claim to the estate. This may have threatened someone's future. Victor's head snapped up, his voice sharp. You've been rummaging in my workspace, haven't you? Those papers are private. Poirot raised an eyebrow, noting Victor's possessiveness. Lady Evelyn intervened, her voice trembling. Amelia mentioned no such thing to me, but she was troubled in her final days. She spent hours in the library, reading old journals. Poirot made a mental note to examine those journals, suspecting they held more pieces of the puzzle. As the meeting adjourned, the family dispersed with strained civility, but Poirot caught fleeting exchanges. A glance between Beatrice and Dr. Hawthorne, a whispered word from Victor to Lydia Finch. He followed Clara to the library, sensing her willingness to share more. The room was a haven of oak shelves and leather armchairs, the air thick with the scent of aged paper. Clara, hesitating, showed Poirot a journal she'd found tucked behind a bookshelf, its pages filled with Amelia's neat handwriting. She was researching our grandfather's business dealings, Clara said softly. She wrote about a partner who vanished in the 1880s, leaving behind a child, possibly the cousin mentioned in that codicil you found. The journal hinted at a scandal. The partner's disappearance coincided with a surge in the Hargrove fortune, suggesting foul play. Amelia's final entry, dated the day before her death, read, "I know the truth now. I must confront them, but I fear the cost." Poirot's mind raced. The codicil and journal together painted a picture of greed and betrayal stretching back decades. Had Amelia's discovery threatened to unravel the family's wealth? He thanked Clara and moved to the drawing room, where he found Reginald Thorpe sketching nervously, his charcoal smudging a portrait of Amelia. Poirot probed further about the anonymous letter Reginald had received. "It was slipped under my door at the inn in Eldridge Hollow," Reginald admitted. "No postmark, just my name." This detail intrigued Poirot. Unlike the others, this letter was delivered in person, suggesting the sender was nearby, perhaps even at the manor. Reginald's grief seemed genuine, but Poirot noted his evasive answers about his London trip, the ticket stub still nagging at his suspicions. Later, Poirot sought out Lydia Finch, finding her in the pantry overseeing the servants. Her efficiency was formidable, her grey hair pulled into a severe bun. "Miss Finch," Poirot began, "you managed this household with precision. Did you notice anything unusual the night Amelia died?" Lydia's lips thinned. "I was in my quarters, preparing the next day's schedule. I saw nothing." But her fingers twitched, and Poirot pressed, mentioning the boathouse light. She faltered, then admitted checking the boathouse locks that evening, but saw no one. "The lake is treacherous at night," she added quickly. "Amelia should never have gone out." Her words echoed Dr. Hawthorne's, and Poirot wondered if their stories were aligned by design. As evening fell, Poirot took a solitary walk along the lake, the air growing colder, the mist thicker. He paused by the willows where the pebble trail had led. Kneeling, he found a discarded cigarette butt, its brand unfamiliar. Unlike Sir Reginald's cigars or Victor's pipe tobacco, it was a small clue, but Poirot pocketed it, his mind turning to the groundskeeper's cottage. He knocked, but Collins was absent, his rake leaning against the door. Inside, through a window, Poirot glimpsed a map of the estate pinned to the wall, with the lake circled in red. Suspicion deepened. Collins' reticence now seemed more than fear of blame. Returning to the manor, Poirot overheard a heated exchange in the hallway. Victor and Beatrice stood close, their voices low but urgent. "You promised it would end with her," Victor hissed. Beatrice replied, "Keep your voice down, or we're all finished." They parted as Poirot approached, their faces masks of composure. He said nothing, but his grey cells were ablaze. The family was fracturing under pressure, and the lake's secrets were rising like bubbles to the surface. Tomorrow, Poirot decided, he would search the library journals and summon Collins for a formal interview. The truth was close, but danger was closer, lurking in the shadows of Willowbrook Manor. Chapter 4. The library's secrets. The morning sun struggled through the heavy clouds over Willowbrook Manor, casting a pallid glow across the lake that seemed to mock its secrets. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the growing tension among the Hargrove family, turned his attention to the library, where Amelia's journal had hinted at a scandal buried in the past. His polished shoes echoed on the manor's polished floors as he made his way to the oak-panelled room, his mind sharp with purpose. The library, with its towering shelves and musty air, held the promise of answers. Answers that could unravel the motives behind Amelia's death. Poirot's little grey cells were alight, piecing together the codicil, the journal, and the whispered argument he'd overheard between Victor and Beatrice. Today, he would dig deeper, starting with the family's archived records and a confrontation with the elusive groundskeeper. Mr. Collins entering the library, Poirot found it deserted, save for the faint creak of a window left ajar, letting in a chill breeze. The shelves loomed like silent sentinels, their leather-bound volumes and dusty ledgers guarding decades of Hargrove history. He began with the section Clara had indicated, pulling down journals and account books from the 1880s, the era of the mysterious partner's disappearance. The pages were brittle, The ink faded, but Poirot's meticulous eye caught details others might overlook. One ledger, embossed with the Hargrove crest, recorded transactions with a man named Thomas Warwick, a tea merchant who had co-founded the family's colonial ventures. Entries showed lucrative profits, but Warwick's name abruptly vanished in 1883, replaced by a vague note about dissolution of partnership. A later entry, in a different hand, mentioned a payment to a woman named Margaret in a nearby village. Possibly Warwick's widow or mistress, Poirot mused. Could her child be the cousin referenced in the codicil? Delving deeper, Poirot found a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, hidden behind a false panel in a bookshelf. The letters, penned by Warwick to Amelia's grandfather, spoke of betrayal. "You've cheated me out of my share," one read, "and I'll expose you unless amends are made." The final letter, dated just before Warwick's disappearance, threatened legal action. Poirot's moustache twitched. Here was motive, old but potent, for silencing Warwick. If Amelia had uncovered this, linking it to the codicil, she might have threatened the family's wealth, giving someone reason to ensure her silence. He pocketed a letter, intending to cross-reference it with the codicil later. Leaving the library, Poirot sought out Mr. Collins, determined to clarify the groundskeeper's story about the boathouse light. He found Collins near the stables, mending a fence with deliberate slowness. The man's weathered face tightened as Poirot approached. "Monsieur Collins," Poirot began, his tone genial but firm, "you spoke of a light in the boathouse. I require precision. When and what exactly did you see?" Collins shifted, his eyes darting to the lake. "It was late, maybe 10 o'clock, he mumbled. "A flicker, like a lantern, moving inside. I thought it was Miss Amelia, but I didn't go closer." Pressed further, Collins admitted hearing footsteps retreating toward the manor, but he claimed not to have seen the figure. Poirot noted the groundskeeper's calloused hands, one bearing a fresh scratch, and recalled the cigarette butt he'd found by the willows, an odd brand for a man of Collins' means. "You have been most helpful," Poirot said, though his smile hid suspicion. Collins's story was too vague, his demeanour too guarded. Returning to the manor, Poirot encountered Aunt Beatrice in the drawing room, arranging flowers with a precision that bordered on obsession. Her lavender perfume hung heavy, reminding him of the anonymous letters. "Madame Beatrice," he said, "you seem fond of order. Did you ever assist Amelia with her research into the family's past?" Beatrice's hand froze mid-snip, her shears gleaming. "Amelia was always poking into things that didn't concern her," she replied sharply. "I told her to leave history alone." Poirot probed about the lavender scent, suggesting its link to the letters, but Beatrice laughed it off. "A common fragrance, monsieur. You're grasping at shadows." Yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease, and Poirot noted her quick glance toward the library door. Later, Poirot cornered Sir Reginald in the billiard room, where the colonel was nursing a brandy and staring at a faded map of the estate. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "your family's fortune rests on tea plantations, no? Were there disputes in the past, perhaps with a partner named Warwick?" Sir Reginald's glass paused at his lips. "Old history," he growled. "Warwick was a fool, got himself lost in India, nothing more to it." But his reddened face and unsteady grip suggested otherwise. Poirot mentioned the codicil, watching closely. "A cousin, you say?" Sir Reginald muttered, feigning surprise. "Rubbish. The estate is ours." His defensiveness confirmed Poirot's suspicion. The family knew more about Warwick's fate than they admitted. As afternoon waned, Poirot returned to the library to cross-check the codicil with the letters. He was interrupted by Miss Lydia Finch, who entered with a tray of tea, her movements brisk, but her eyes watchful. "You're stirring up trouble, Monsieur Poirot," she said, setting the tray down. "The family is grieving. Let them be." Poirot smiled politely, noting her familiarity with the library's layout. "And you, mademoiselle, you know every corner of this manor. "Did you ever see Amelia with these journals?" Lydia hesitated, then admitted Amelia had asked her to retrieve specific volumes from the archives. "She was curious about her grandfather's time," Lydia said. "I thought it harmless." But her tone suggested she knew more, and Poirot resolved to question her further later. Dinner that evening was a tense affair, the clink of silverware punctuating awkward silences. Victor was absent, claiming a headache, while Clara barely touched her food, her eyes red from crying. Dr. Hawthorne, seated opposite Poirot, offered a toast to Amelia's memory, but his words felt hollow. Poirot observed Reginald Thorpe, who sat quietly, sketching absent-mindedly on a napkin. A map of the lake, Poirot noted with interest. After dinner, Poirot slipped away to examine the napkin, left crumpled on the table. It showed the boathouse and a path leading to the willows, marked with an X near where Poirot had found the cigarette butt. Was Reginald retracing his own steps or someone else's? As night fell, Poirot took a lantern and ventured to the groundskeeper's cottage, hoping to catch Collins off guard. The door was ajar, the interior dark. Inside, he found the map he'd glimpsed earlier, now with additional markings. A line tracing the lake's edge to a derelict pier hidden by reeds. A photograph tucked under a book showed a younger Collins with a man resembling Thomas Warwick, both smiling in front of a tea plantation. The connection was undeniable. Collins had ties to the past, perhaps as Warwick's descendant or confidant. Before Poirot could search further, a floorboard creaked behind him. He turned, lantern raised, but saw only shadows. A gust of wind slammed the door shut, and the lantern flickered out, plunging him into darkness. Heart pounding, Poirot relit the lantern, his senses alert. He stepped outside, scanning the misty grounds. A faint light bobbed near the derelict pier, then vanished. Someone was moving in the night, guarding or hiding something. Poirot's resolve hardened. The library's secrets had confirmed a motive rooted in the family's history, and Collins's past was no coincidence. Tomorrow, he would confront the groundskeeper and examine the pier, where he suspected more clues lay submerged. The lake was speaking, and its whispers were growing louder, urging Poirot toward a truth that threatened to drown them all. Chapter 5. The Derelict Pier. The dawn broke over Willowbrook Manor with a heavy fog, wrapping the lake in a ghostly embrace that seemed to guard its secrets ever tighter. Hercule Poirot, his mind sharpened by the previous night's discoveries, felt the weight of the mystery pressing closer. The photograph of Collins with a man resembling Thomas Warwick, the map with its ominous markings, and the fleeting light at the derelict pier all pointed to a truth submerged not just in the lake, but in the Hargrove family's past. Poirot's little grey cells hummed as he donned his overcoat, determined to investigate the pier and confront Collins, whose evasions could no longer be ignored. The manor was quiet, its inhabitants still abed, but Poirot sensed eyes watching from shadowed windows as he stepped into the mist. He made his way along the lake's edge, following the path marked on Collins's map. The derelict pier lay hidden among dense reeds, its rotting planks barely visible through the fog. The air was damp, carrying the faint smell of decay and algae. Poirot crouched, examining the pier's base where it met the water. His keen eyes spotted a glint of metal, a small brass key, half buried in the mud, its surface etched with the initials T.W. Thomas Warwick. Poirot pocketed it, his mind racing. The key suggested something hidden, perhaps a lockbox or safe tied to the codicil's secrets. He scanned the pier further, noticing fresh scuff marks on the weathered wood, as if someone had recently stood here, dragging something heavy. A faint stain, dark and irregular, marred one plank, possibly blood, though the lake's moisture made it hard to confirm. Poirot marked the spot, intending to have it tested. Returning to the manor, Poirot sought Collins, finding him in the garden shed, sharpening tools with a rhythmic scrape that set Poirot's nerves on edge. Monsieur Collins, he began, his voice calm but piercing, you neglected to mention your connection to Thomas Warwick. A photograph in your cottage suggests familiarity, no? Collins froze, his knuckles whitening on the sharpening stone. Don't know what you're on about, he muttered, but his eyes betrayed panic. Poirot pressed, mentioning the map and the pier's markings. Collins admitted to visiting the pier occasionally to check for damage, but denied being there the night of Amelia's death. I'm just a groundskeeper, he insisted. Yet the scratch on his hand and the cigarette butt's odd brand lingered in Poirot's mind, linking Collins to the lake's mysteries. Inside, Poirot found Clara in the breakfast room, her face pale as she stirred her tea absently. Sensing her vulnerability, he sat beside her, his tone gentle. Mademoiselle Clara, you mentioned Amelia's fear after finding the journal. Did she ever speak of a key, perhaps one tied to her discoveries? Clara's eyes widened and she nodded hesitantly. She wore a small key on a chain around her neck, hidden under her blouse. I thought it was just a keepsake, but she said it unlocked the truth. I haven't seen it since she was found. Poirot's pulse quickened. The brass key in his pocket could be Amelia's, lost in a struggle or deliberately hidden. He thanked Clara, urging her to stay vigilant, as the manor's secrets were drawing danger closer. Next, Poirot sought Dr. Hawthorne, finding him in his makeshift study, a small room cluttered with medical books and a locked cabinet. Doctor, Poirot said, you pronounced Amelia dead, yet the bruise on her temple raises questions. Could it have come from a blow rather than the boat? Hawthorne adjusted his spectacles, his voice steady. The bruise was consistent with an accident. Sharp edge, no fracturing. I examined her thoroughly. But Poirot noticed the doctor's fingers linger on the cabinet's lock, as if guarding something. And this key, Poirot said, producing the brass key. Does it belong to your cabinet, perhaps? Hawthorne's composure slipped, his eyes narrowing. I've never seen it, he said quickly, but Poirot sensed a lie. He left, resolving to investigate the cabinet later. In the afternoon, Poirot visited Victor's attic workshop, hoping to uncover more about the inventor's motives. Victor was soldering a circuit, his movements jerky with frustration. Monsieur Victor, Poirot said, your inventions rely on the estate's funds, yet Amelia threatened to cut them. Did this anger you enough to act? Victor slammed his tool down, his face flushed. I'm no murderer. Amelia was stubborn, but I was working here that night. Ask anyone. Yet no one could confirm his alibi, and Poirot noticed a small lockbox under Victor's desk, its keyhole matching the brass key's size. When questioned, Victor claimed it held personal patents, but his evasiveness suggested more. Poirot left, the lockbox a new thread in the web. At tea, Poirot observed the family, their interactions strained. Lady Evelyn seemed distracted, her eyes darting to Sir Reginald, who avoided her gaze. Beatrice whispered to Lydia Finch, their heads close, while Reginald Thorpe sketched nervously, his napkin now depicting the pier. Poirot approached him later, asking about the sketch. Just memories, Reginald said, his voice hollow. Amelia loved that pier as a child. But the X on his sketch matched the pier's stained plank, raising Poirot's suspicions. Had Reginald been there, or was he covering for someone else? As dusk fell, Poirot returned to the pier, this time with a borrowed pole to probe the shallow water. The fog was thicker, the silence oppressive. His pole struck something solid, a wooden box half sunk in the mud. With effort, he retrieved it, its surface slimy but intact, locked with a keyhole matching the brass key. Before he could open it, a rustling in the reeds made him turn. A figure darted away, too swift to identify, but Poirot glimpsed a flash of red. A scarf, perhaps, like one Beatrice wore. He secured the box in his satchel, heart racing, and hurried back to the manor, determined to open it in private. In his guest room, Poirot used the brass key to unlock the box. Inside was a locket engraved with T.W. and containing a faded photograph of a woman resembling Clara, but older, possibly Margaret, Warwick's widow. A folded note read, "The Hargroves stole my future. The lake holds proof." Poirot's mind raced. Warwick's disappearance was no accident, and Amelia's discovery had rekindled a dangerous truth. The note's handwriting matched the anonymous letters, suggesting the same author, but whose hand penned it? As midnight approached, Poirot heard footsteps outside his door, soft but deliberate. He opened it, finding no one, but a single lavender-scented envelope lay on the floor. Its message was chilling. "Stop digging, or join her in the lake." The threat confirmed Poirot's fears. The killer was among them, and his probing was hitting nerves. Tomorrow, he would test the box's contents against the family's reactions, starting with Beatrice and her telltale perfume. The pier had yielded its secret, but the lake's depth still held more, and Poirot knew time was running out to expose the murderer before they struck again. Chapter 6. The Locket's Truth. The mist over Willowbrook Manor clung like a shroud as Hercule Poirot sat in his guest room, the locket from the derelict pier glinting in the lamplight. Its engraved initials T.W. and the note inside, "The Hargroves stole my future. The lake holds proof," burned in his mind, linking Amelia's death to a decades-old betrayal. The lavender-scented threat slipped under his door last night, confirmed the killer's desperation, and Poirot knew he was closing in. His little grey cells worked tirelessly, weaving the brass key, the codicil, and the photograph of Collins with Warwick into a tapestry of motive and deceit. Today, he would confront Beatrice about her perfume and test the family's reactions to the locket. But first, he needed to verify the note's handwriting and explore Dr. Hawthorne's locked cabinet. Poirot began the morning in the Manor's study, where he compared the threatening note to the anonymous letters sent to Amelia. The slanted script and distinctive flourishes were identical, confirming a single author. The lavender scent, so strongly tied to Beatrice, made her a prime suspect, but Poirot cautioned himself. Clues could be planted to mislead. He slipped the locket into his pocket and descended to the breakfast room, where the family gathered in uneasy silence. Beatrice, dressed in a crimson shawl that matched the flash he'd seen at the pier, sipped coffee with studied calm. Poirot caught her eye and smiled. "Madame Beatrice, your perfume is most distinctive. Did you ever write to Amelia, perhaps to advise her?" Beatrice's cup clattered slightly. "I wrote no letters," she said sharply, "and lavender is hardly unique." But her quick glance at Dr. Hawthorne betrayed a shared tension. Poirot turned to Lady Evelyn, seated at the table's head. "Madame, this locket," he said, producing it carefully, "was found near the lake. It bears the initials T.W., Thomas Warwick, perhaps." Lady Evelyn's face paled, her fingers tightening on her napkin. I don't know it," she stammered, but her voice wavered. Sir Reginald snorted, dismissing it as some trinket, but his eyes lingered on the locket too long. Clara, sitting quietly, gasped softly, whispering, "Amelia had a locket like that, but she never showed me what was inside." Poirot noted Victor's absence and resolved to question him next, suspecting the inventor's lockbox held related secrets. Seeking Dr. Hawthorne, Poirot found him in the conservatory, tending to a sickly orchid. "Doctor," Poirot said, "your cabinet intrigues me. Might the key I found fit it?" He held up the brass key, watching Hawthorne's reaction. The doctor's hand faltered, a petal falling from the flower. "My cabinet holds medical supplies, nothing more," he said, but his voice was tight. Poirot pressed, mentioning the locket's note and its accusation against the Hargroves. Hawthorne's composure cracked. "You're chasing ghosts, monsieur. Warwick's time is long past." But his refusal to meet Poirot's gaze suggested otherwise. Poirot left, determined to access the cabinet later, perhaps with less conventional means. In the attic, Poirot found Victor tinkering with a mechanical contraption, its gears whirring ominously. "Monsieur Victor," he said, "your lockbox. Does it contain papers about Warwick, or perhaps something Amelia discovered? Victor's wrench slipped, clanging to the floor. You've no right to pry, he snapped. My work is private. Poirot mentioned the locket, watching Victor's face. Warwick? Never heard of him, Victor said, but his fingers trembled. Poirot noticed a notebook on the desk, its pages filled with sketches of the lake and cryptic notes about leverage. He left Victor stewing, suspecting the inventor knew more about the estate's hidden claims than he admitted. At lunch, Poirot observed Reginald Thorpe, whose sketches now included the locket's design, etched with uncanny accuracy. Monsieur Thorpe, Poirot said, joining him in the parlour, you seem familiar with this locket. Did Amelia share its significance? Reginald's charcoal snapped. She wore it sometimes, he admitted. Said it was a family heirloom, but she was cagey about it. His grief seemed genuine, but Poirot noted his sketch's detail, too precise for mere memory. Had Reginald seen the locket recently, perhaps at the pier? Poirot filed this away, his suspicions growing. Later, Poirot slipped into Dr. Hawthorne's study while the doctor was at tea. Using a hairpin from Clara's room, he picked the cabinet's lock, a skill honed in less savoury investigations. Inside, he found vials of sedatives, medical records, and a hidden compartment containing a letter in Warwick's handwriting, addressed to Hawthorne's father, a former family physician. It accused the Hargroves of sabotaging Warwick's business and hinted at a buried truth near the lake. The letter's date, 1883, aligned with Warwick's disappearance, and its tone suggested Hawthorne's family had colluded with the Hargroves. Poirot pocketed the letter, his heart racing. The doctor's guarded demeanour now made sense. His family's legacy was tied to the crime. As evening fell, Poirot confronted Lydia Finch in the kitchen, where she was overseeing dinner preparations. Mademoiselle Finch, he said, you knew Amelia's habits well. Did she ever mention a locket or a key? Lydia's knife paused mid-chop. She was always secretive, she said curtly. Kept things in her room, locked away. Poirot mentioned the lavender-scented threat, watching her closely. Lydia's eyes flickered, but she insisted she knew nothing of letters. Her efficiency, however, suggested she could orchestrate more than household tasks, and Poirot marked her as a potential accomplice. Dinner was a strained affair, with Victor rejoining the table, his mood dark. Poirot deliberately mentioned the peer's findings, watching for reactions. Beatrice's fork froze, and Dr. Hawthorne coughed into his napkin. Sir Reginald, emboldened by wine, accused Poirot of stirring up nonsense, but his bluster felt forced. After dinner, Poirot retired to his room, only to find his satchel disturbed. The locket was still there, but the threatening note was gone. Someone had entered, searching for evidence. He checked the door's lock, finding faint scratches. Someone skilled had picked it. As midnight loomed, Poirot stood by his window, gazing at the lake. A faint splash echoed, followed by a low murmur of voices near the boathouse. He grabbed his lantern and crept outside, the fog swallowing his footsteps. At the boathouse he saw two figures, silhouetted against the water, one tall and broad, the other slight. Their voices were hushed, but Poirot caught fragments. The locket changes everything, and must stay hidden. Before he could approach, they vanished into the mist. Poirot's pulse quickened. The locket had struck a nerve, and the lake's proof was closer than ever. Tomorrow he would force a confession, using the locket and Warwick's letter to corner the guilty. The manor's walls were closing in, and the killer's shadow loomed larger, ready to strike again. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. The fog over Willowbrook Manor thickened as dawn broke, casting an oppressive gloom that mirrored the tension within its walls. Hercule Poirot, his mind ablaze with the locket's revelations and the stolen threat from his room, knew the time for subtlety was over. The identical handwriting of the anonymous letters, the letter implicating Dr. Hawthorne's father, and the whispered voices by the boathouse pointed to a conspiracy rooted in the Hargrove family's past. His little grey cells churned, connecting the dots. Amelia's death was no accident, and the killer, or killers, were growing desperate. Today, Poirot would stage a bold confrontation, using the locket and Warwick's letter to force the truth into the open, but he had to tread carefully, as the shadowy figures by the lake suggested danger was near. Poirot began the morning by requesting a second gathering in the dining hall, his demeanour calm but resolute. The family assembled reluctantly, their faces etched with unease. Lady Evelyn's hands trembled slightly. Sir Reginald's cigar smoke curled nervously. Beatrice adjusted her crimson shawl with forced poise. Victor's scowl deepened. Clara clutched a handkerchief. Dr. Hawthorne stood stiffly, and Lydia Finch lingered at the edges, her eyes sharp. Reginald Thorpe sat apart, his sketchbook closed, his fingers twitching. Poirot stood at the table's head, his voice clear. Mesdames et messieurs, the locket found at the pier unlocks more than a box. It unlocks a crime. Amelia discovered a truth about Thomas Warwick. A truth someone here killed to keep buried. Gasps punctuated the room as Poirot produced the locket and Warwick's letter, the latter accusing the Hargroves of sabotage. This letter, written in 1883, suggests Warwick was betrayed, he said, watching their reactions. Beatrice's face tightened, her lips parting as if to protest, but she remained silent. Dr. Hawthorne's spectacles glinted as he leaned forward. "That's preposterous," he said. "My father was a respected physician, not a conspirator." Yet his voice lacked conviction. Poirot pressed on, revealing the note from the locket. "The Hargroves stole my future. The lake holds proof." Sir Reginald slammed his fist on the table. "Enough of this nonsense. Warwick was a drunk who vanished, nothing more." But his eyes darted to Lady Evelyn, who looked away, her composure fraying. Poirot turned to Beatrice, his tone sharp. "Madame, the letters threatening Amelia, and now me, bear the scent of your lavender perfume. Care to explain?" Beatrice's shawl slipped slightly, her voice rising. "I told you lavender is common. You accuse me without proof." But Clara interjected, her voice trembling. "Aunt Beatrice, I saw you burning papers in the garden 2 nights ago, near the boathouse." The room froze. Beatrice's eyes flashed with anger, but Poirot noted Victor's sudden stillness, as if Clara's words struck a nerve. He pivoted to Victor. "Monsieur, your lockbox. Does it hold documents Amelia found, perhaps about Warwick's claim?" Victor's face reddened. "You're obsessed with my work. I've nothing to hide." But his clenched fists suggested otherwise. Leaving the family reeling, Poirot sought out the boathouse, where the previous night's voices had echoed. The morning mist cloaked the structure, its timbers creaking softly. Inside, he found a discarded matchbook, its cover matching the cigarette butt from the Willows, an uncommon brand. Not Sir Reginald's or Victor's. Kneeling, he noticed a loose floorboard, prying it open to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside was a small vial, empty but smelling faintly of sedative, the kind Dr. Hawthorne kept in his cabinet. Had Amelia been drugged before her drowning? Poirot pocketed the vial, his suspicions deepening about the doctor's role. Returning to the manor, Poirot confronted Reginald Thorpe in the parlour, where the artist was sketching the lake with feverish intensity. "Monsieur Thorpe," Poirot said, "your sketches mark the pier and locket with uncanny detail. Were you there the night Amelia died?" Reginald's pencil stopped, his voice low. "I was in London, I swear, but Amelia told me about the locket. She said it held a secret that could ruin the family. I begged her to leave it alone." His eyes glistened, but Poirot noted the matchbook in his pocket, its brand identical to the one from the boathouse. Was Reginald's grief a mask? Later, Poirot visited Clara in the library, sensing her growing fear. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "you saw Beatrice burning papers. Did you see what they were?" Clara hesitated, then admitted glimpsing a letter with the Hargrove crest, similar to the codicil. "I didn't tell anyone," she whispered. "I was afraid." Poirot urged her to stay close to Lady Evelyn, suspecting Clara's knowledge made her a target. He then sought Lydia Finch, finding her in the pantry, her movements brisk but her face pale. "Mademoiselle Finch," he said, "you were near the boathouse the night of the burning. Did you assist Madame Beatrice?" Lydia's eyes narrowed. "I managed the household, not their secrets," she snapped. But her trembling hands betrayed her. As evening fell, Poirot slipped into Dr. Hawthorne's study again, this time finding a hidden ledger in the cabinet's false bottom. It recorded payments from the Hargroves to Hawthorne's father in 1883, coinciding with Warwick's disappearance. The sums were large, suggesting a bribe or hush money. Poirot's heart raced. The doctor's family was complicit, and Hawthorne's defense of his father was a lie. Confronting him at dinner, Poirot revealed the ledger's contents. Hawthorne's face drained of colour. "Those are old records," he stammered. "They prove nothing." But the family's shocked silence spoke volumes. After dinner, Poirot walked the lake's edge, the fog denser than ever. A sudden rustle in the reeds made him turn, lantern raised. A figure lunged, knocking the lantern from his hand. Poirot stumbled, catching a glimpse of a red shawl before the figure fled. His heart pounded as he retrieved the lantern, its light revealing a fresh footprint in the mud. Too large for Beatrice, more like Victor's or Sir Reginald's. The attack confirmed the killer's panic, but it also emboldened Poirot. He returned to the manor, locking his door, and examined the vial again. Its sedative scent matched a bottle in Hawthorne's study, linking the doctor to a possible murder weapon. As midnight told, Poirot sat by his window, the lake a dark mirror below. A faint glow flickered near the derelict pier, then vanished. Someone was still guarding the lake's secrets, and the confrontation had rattled them. Tomorrow Poirot would use the ledger and vial to force a confession, starting with Hawthorne and Beatrice, whose lies were unravelling. The manor's shadows were closing in, and Poirot knew the killer would strike again if he didn't act swiftly. Chapter 8. The Unravelling Web. The air in Willowbrook Manor was thick with suspicion as dawn crept through the fog. The lake outside, reflecting a muted, restless grey. Hercule Poirot, his mind a storm of clues. The sedative vial, the ledger implicating Dr. Hawthorne's father, and the attack by the lake, knew the killer's desperation was peaking. The confrontation in the dining hall had exposed cracks in the family's facade, and the footprint near the reeds, too large for Beatrice, pointed to a male conspirator, perhaps Victor or Sir Reginald. Poirot's little grey cells worked tirelessly, weaving the evidence into a tightening net. Today, he would push further, using the vial and ledger to corner Dr. Hawthorne and Beatrice, while investigating the boathouse voices and the mysterious matchbook tied to Reginald Thorpe. Poirot began the morning in the manor's study, examining the sedative vial under a magnifying glass. Its faint chemical scent matched the bottles in Dr. Hawthorne's cabinet, suggesting Amelia may have been drugged before her drowning. A calculated act to ensure silence. He pocketed the vial and headed to the conservatory, where Dr. Hawthorne was cataloguing plants, his movements precise but tense. "Docteur," Poirot said, holding up the vial, "this was found in the boathouse, hidden beneath a floorboard. It matches your sedatives. Did you administer something to Amelia that night?" Hawthorne's pen froze, his face paling. "I prescribed nothing for her," he said sharply. "Anyone could have taken that vial from my study." But his quick glance toward the manor betrayed fear, and Poirot noted it, suspecting the doctor's involvement ran deeper than he admitted. Next, Poirot sought Beatrice in the drawing room, where she was arranging a vase of roses, her crimson shawl draped elegantly. "Madame Beatrice," he said, "you were seen burning papers near the boathouse, and your lavender scent clings to threatening letters. Were you protecting the family's secrets, or your own?" Beatrice's hand trembled, a rose falling to the floor. "Clara's mistaken," she snapped. "I burned old recipes, nothing more. You're hounding an innocent woman." But her eyes darted to the door, and Poirot sensed she was shielding someone, perhaps the figure in the reeds. He mentioned the attack, watching her closely. "Someone fears my questions, madame." "Was it you or another?" Beatrice's lips tightened, but she said nothing, her silence louder than words. Poirot then turned to Victor, finding him in the attic, surrounded by whirring contraptions. "Monsieur Victor," he said, "your footprints match those near the lake last night. Were you guarding the boathouse's secrets?" Victor's face darkened, his hands clenching a screwdriver. "I was in my workshop," he growled. "You've no proof otherwise." Poirot mentioned the notebook with lake sketches and cryptic notes about leverage. Victor's eyes flashed. "Those are for my irrigation system, nothing to do with Amelia." But his voice cracked, and Poirot noticed a small key on Victor's desk, similar to the brass one from the pier. "Your lockbox. Perhaps it holds the truth Amelia died for?" Poirot asked. Victor shoved the key into his pocket, muttering, "Leave my work alone." At midday, Poirot found Reginald Thorpe in the garden, sketching the boathouse with feverish detail. "Monsieur Thorpe," Poirot said, producing the matchbook, "this matches one in your pocket, found near the boathouse. Were you there, despite your London alibi?" Reginald's face flushed, his sketchbook falling. I visited the boathouse days before to paint the lake," he stammered. "I dropped the matchbook then." But his eyes avoided Poirot's, and the precise detail of his sketches, marking the hidden compartment, suggested more. Poirot pressed, mentioning the voices heard last night. Reginald's hands shook. "I wasn't there," he insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Seeking Clara, Poirot found her in the library, her face drawn with worry. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "you're in danger knowing what Amelia uncovered. Have you seen anything else suspicious?" Clara hesitated, then whispered, "Last night, I saw Dr. Hawthorne and Lydia Finch near the boathouse, talking in low voices. I couldn't hear, but they looked secretive." Poirot's pulse quickened. Another link between Hawthorne and the boathouse. He thanked Clara, urging her to lock her door at night, as the killer's desperation was growing. In the afternoon, Poirot confronted Lydia Finch in the pantry, where she was polishing silver with mechanical precision. "Mademoiselle Finch," he said, "you were seen with Dr. Hawthorne near the boathouse last night. What secrets do you share?" Lydia's cloth paused, her eyes narrowing. "I was checking the grounds, as always," she said. "The doctor was discussing Lady Evelyn's health." But her voice faltered, and Poirot sensed a rehearsed lie. He mentioned the sedative vial, watching her reaction. "I know nothing of medicines," she said quickly, but her fingers twitched, betraying her calm. As evening approached, Poirot slipped into Sir Reginald's study, where he found a locked drawer in the desk. Using his hairpin trick, he opened it, revealing a bundle of IOUs, debts Sir Reginald owed to a London bookmaker, totaling thousands. A note in the same handwriting as the anonymous letters read, "Pay, or the truth comes out." Poirot's mind raced. The Colonel's debts gave him motive to silence Amelia, who might have redirected estate funds, threatening his lifestyle. Had he conspired with Beatrice or Hawthorne to protect his secrets? Dinner was a silent ordeal, the family avoiding Poirot's gaze. He deliberately mentioned the ledger's payments to Hawthorne's father, watching the doctor flinch. Beatrice dropped her glass, wine staining the tablecloth, while Sir Reginald's face reddened. Victor excused himself early, claiming fatigue, but Poirot noted his hurried exit. After dinner, Poirot followed a hunch, returning to the boathouse under cover of darkness. The fog was impenetrable, but a faint light glowed inside. Creeping closer, he heard a low voice, Victor's, muttering, "It's still there, safe." Poirot peered through a crack, seeing Victor prying at another floorboard, revealing a small bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Before Poirot could act, a twig snapped behind him. He turned, but a sharp blow struck his temple, and darkness swallowed him. When Poirot awoke, his head throbbed, and the boathouse was empty, the bundle gone. His lantern lay shattered, but he was alive, a warning, not a murder. Staggering back to the manor, he locked his door, his resolve unshaken. The attack confirmed the bundle's importance, and Victor's presence tied him to the lake's secrets. Tomorrow, Poirot would seize the bundle and confront the family with the IOUs, vial and ledger, forcing the killer to reveal themselves. The web was unraveling, and the truth was rising from the lake's depths, sharp and dangerous. Chapter 9. The Lake's Final Secret. The morning fog clung to Willowbrook Manor like a shroud, its tendrils curling around the lake where secrets lay buried. Hercule Poirot, nursing a throbbing temple from the attack at the boathouse, felt the mystery's threads tightening around the guilty. The sedative vial, Sir Reginald's IOUs, and Victor's oilcloth bundle pointed to a conspiracy fueled by greed and fear, rooted in Thomas Warwick's betrayal. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with certainty. The bundle Victor hid held the key to Amelia's murder, and the attacker, likely the same figure who struck him, meant to keep it submerged. Today, Poirot would seize the bundle and stage a final confrontation, forcing the killer to surface before another strike. Poirot began the day in his room, examining the scratches on his door's lock, evidence of the intruder who stole the threatening note. His resolve hardened. He would not be intimidated. He headed to the boathouse, the mist still thick, and searched the floorboards where Victor had knelt. A faint outline marked a hidden compartment, but it was empty, the bundle gone. Frustrated but undeterred, Poirot noticed a smear of oil on the boathouse wall, matching the bundle's wrapping. Nearby, a single lavender-scented handkerchief lay discarded, its monogram B.H., Beatrice Hargrove. Had she been Victor's accomplice, or was she framing him? Poirot pocketed the handkerchief, his mind racing. Returning to the manor, Poirot sought Victor in the attic, where the inventor was dismantling a contraption with furious energy. "Monsieur Victor," Poirot said, his voice steady, "you were at the boathouse last night, hiding a bundle. What does it contain?" Victor's face paled, his hands shaking. "You're mad," he snapped. "I was here all night." But Poirot produced the handkerchief, watching Victor's eyes widen. "This was found where you hid your bundle. Care to explain?" Victor stammered, claiming ignorance, but his glance at the lockbox under his desk betrayed him. Poirot lunged, seizing the lockbox before Victor could react. Inside, he found a key matching the one from the pier, but no bundle. "Where is it, monsieur?" Poirot demanded. Victor's silence was answer enough. He'd moved it. Poirot next confronted Beatrice in the drawing room, where she sat embroidering, her crimson shawl draped nearby. "Madame," he said, holding up the handkerchief, "this was found at the boathouse, with your initials. Were you there with Victor, or do you accuse him?" Beatrice's needle froze, her face flushing. "That's not mine," she said, but her voice trembled. Poirot pressed, mentioning the oil smear and the bundle. "Someone attacked me to protect it," he said. "Was it you shielding a secret?" Beatrice stood, her shawl falling. "You're chasing phantoms, monsieur," she cried. But her eyes darted to the door, where Dr. Hawthorne lingered, watching. Seeking the doctor, Poirot found him in his study, locking his cabinet. "Docteur," Poirot said, producing the vial. "This sedative links you to Amelia's death, and your father's payments from the Hargroves suggest a family secret worth killing for." Hawthorne's spectacles slipped, his voice sharp. "You're slandering my name." "I had no part in her death," but Poirot noticed a faint oil stain on Hawthorne's sleeve, matching the boathouse smear. "You were there last night, no? With the bundle?" Hawthorne's silence was damning, and Poirot left, certain the doctor was entangled in the plot. At lunch, Poirot observed Sir Reginald, whose hands shook as he poured brandy. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "your debts gave you motive to silence Amelia, who threatened the estate's funds. Did you conspire with Victor or Beatrice?" Sir Reginald's glass crashed to the table. "I'm no killer!" he roared, but his eyes flicked to Beatrice, who looked away. Clara, sitting quietly, whispered to Poirot, "I saw Victor near the lake this morning, carrying something wrapped in cloth." Poirot thanked her. his suspicions narrowing to Victor and his elusive bundle. In the afternoon, Poirot followed Clara's lead to the lake's edge, near the derelict pier. Hidden among the reeds, he found fresh footprints, Victor's size, leading to a hollowed tree stump. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was the bundle, a leather pouch containing a sealed letter and a small dagger, its blade stained with dried blood. The letter, in Warwick's handwriting, detailed a confrontation with Amelia's grandfather, accusing him of murder to secure the estate. A postscript added later read, "My heir will claim what's owed." Poirot's heart raced. Amelia had found this, threatening the Hargroves' fortune, and the dagger suggested violence beyond her drowning. Returning to the manor, Poirot confronted Lydia Finch in the kitchen, where she was scrubbing pots with unusual vigour. "Mademoiselle," he said, "you've been seen with Dr. Hawthorne and Victor near the boathouse. Did you help hide this bundle?" Lydia's sponge fell, her face ashen. "I only follow orders," she whispered. "Victor said it was for the family's good." Her admission linked Victor to the crime, but Poirot suspected others were involved. He thanked her, urging caution, as the killer's net was tightening. As evening fell, Poirot gathered the family in the library, the air heavy with dread. He laid out the bundle's contents, the letter and dagger. "This proves Warwick was murdered," he said, "and Amelia's discovery of it led to her death." "Who among you acted?" Victor lunged forward, shouting, "You've no proof!" But Beatrice grabbed his arm, her face pale. Dr. Hawthorne's hands trembled, and Sir Reginald's brandy glass shook. Suddenly a scream pierced the room. Clara, standing by the window, pointed to the lake where a figure stood, holding a lantern. The figure vanished as Poirot rushed outside, finding only a dropped matchbook, identical to Reginald's. Back inside, Poirot locked the library doors, his voice calm but commanding. "The bundle is found, the truth exposed. The killer is here, and I will name them soon." The family's faces were masks of fear, but Poirot knew the final piece lay in the lake's depths. Tonight, he would watch the boathouse, expecting the killer to retrieve one last secret. The manor's shadows pulsed with danger, and Poirot's trap was set, ready to catch a murderer. Chapter 10. The Truth. Beneath the waters, the night draped Willowbrook Manor in a heavy mist, the lake outside a silent witness to the secrets it had guarded for decades. Hercule Poirot, his mind a crucible of clues. The blood-stained dagger, Warwick's letter, the sedative vial, and the oilcloth bundle, knew the moment of reckoning had arrived. The attack at the boathouse and Clara's sighting of the lantern-wielding figure confirmed the killer's desperation, and Poirot's trap was set. His little grey cells had woven the evidence into a clear picture. Amelia's murder was tied to Thomas Warwick's betrayal, and the guilty stood among the manor's inhabitants. Tonight, in a final gathering, Poirot would expose the murderer, unravelling the web of greed and deceit that had drowned the heiress. Poirot began the evening by locking his room, securing the bundle's contents, the letter and dagger, in a hidden pocket of his overcoat. He requested the family assemble in the grand dining hall, where the flickering chandelier cast long shadows, mirroring the tension in the air. Lady Evelyn sat rigid, her eyes haunted. Sir Reginald gripped his brandy glass. Beatrice's crimson shawl was absent, her face pale. Victor's hands twitched, his scowl fierce. Clara clung to her handkerchief, her gaze fearful. Dr. Hawthorne adjusted his spectacles nervously. Lydia Finch stood by the door, her posture stiff. And Reginald Thorpe, his sketchbook abandoned, looked haggard. Poirot stood at the table's head, his voice calm but commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, Amelia Hargrove was murdered to silence a truth that threatens this family's fortune. Tonight, I name the killer." He began with the past, laying out Warwick's letter from the bundle. Thomas Warwick was murdered in 1883 by Amelia's grandfather, who stole his share of the tea empire. A codicil granted Warwick's heir a claim to the estate, which Amelia discovered. Gasps rippled through the room, but Poirot raised a hand. She found this letter and dagger, proof of the crime, hidden in a locket. Someone ensured she never revealed it. He produced the dagger, its blood-stained blade gleaming. This was used to threaten, or worse, long ago, and its presence in the lake ties it to Amelia's death. Poirot turned to Dr. Hawthorne, holding up the sedative vial. "Doctor, this was found in the boathouse, matching your cabinet's contents. You drugged Amelia to stage her drowning, no?" Hawthorne's face drained of colour. I only supplied medicine for Lady Evelyn," he stammered, but Poirot cut him off, revealing the ledger of payments to Hawthorne's father. "Your family profited from Warwick's death, and you protected that legacy." Hawthorne slumped, admitting, "I gave Victor the sedative, but I didn't kill her." Poirot pivoted to Victor, producing the oilcloth bundle's key. "Monsieur Victor, you hid this in the boathouse, knowing it exposed your family's crime. You argued with Amelia about funds, but her discovery of the codicil threatened your inheritance." Victor's eyes blazed. "I hid it to protect us, not to kill." But Poirot pointed to the handkerchief with Beatrice's initials. "Madame Beatrice, you were at the boathouse, burning papers to cover Victor's tracks. Your lavender-scented letters threatened Amelia. And me." Beatrice stood, trembling. "I wrote to scare her, yes, but I didn't touch her." The room tensed as Poirot turned to Sir Reginald. "Monsieur, your debts made Amelia's control of the estate a threat. Did you act to save your lifestyle?" Sir Reginald roared, "I'm no murderer!" But his shaking hands betrayed him. Poirot then addressed Reginald Thorpe. "Monsieur Thorpe, your matchbook and sketches place you at the boathouse. You lied about London." Reginald's voice broke. "I loved Amelia. I was there, yes, but only to find her locket. She dropped it that night." Clara's sob broke the silence. "Monsieur Poirot, I heard voices, Victor's and another, by the lake." Poirot nodded, his gaze shifting to Lydia Finch. "Mademoiselle Finch, you admitted helping Victor. Did you see more?" Lydia's face crumpled. "I saw Victor and Dr. Hawthorne with Amelia in the boat. She was limp." The room erupted, Victor shouting, "Lies!" But Poirot's voice cut through. "Victor, you drugged Amelia with Hawthorne's sedative, rode her out, and struck her, staging an accident. Beatrice burned evidence, and Hawthorne covered it medically. But one detail betrays you." Poirot revealed the final clue. A torn piece of Victor's notebook, found in the boathouse with a sketch of the lake marked "Dispose here." "You planned her death," Poirot said. "The dagger and letter were to be sunk, but Amelia fought, leaving her earring and lace." Victor lunged for the door, but Jenkins, the butler, blocked it, summoned by Poirot earlier. "You killed to keep the estate," Poirot declared. Victor collapsed, confessing, "She'd ruin us all. The codicil would have taken everything." Beatrice admitted writing the letters to scare Amelia, and Hawthorne confessed to supplying the sedative, fearing exposure of his father's complicity. As the police, called by Poirot, arrived to arrest Victor, Hawthorne and Beatrice, Lady Evelyn wept. Clara clung to her, and Sir Reginald sat stunned. Reginald Thorpe, cleared but broken, left for London. Poirot gazed at the lake, its surface calm at last. "The truth," he said softly, "rises like water, unstoppable." As he departed Willowbrook, the fog lifted and the manor stood silent, its secrets laid bare. If you've enjoyed this tale of mystery, please like, comment and subscribe. Your support means the world to us.